All right. Hello, everyone. Jared and Dave here. Tonight we have a special guest. We're on with Lady Maga. We first met her in Stan. Do you like go? Let's clear the air on this. Do you like going by her
Yeah,
or
I
what?
was about to correct you. I am a biological man. I'm a theatrical person. I dress up for fun, and I used to do it for fun. Now I really do it for political reasons to shake up the left and traumatize them. So yeah, when I'm in a costume, you can call me her or she for fun, but I'm not one of those people who's gonna stand at the counter and say, "It's ma'am."
So you're pretty. I guess
Him,
we
call
should
me
say
him.
liberal on how you want to be pronouned. Is that the proper way to say it, pronoun?
I
Or did
like
I
it.
just invent a new
It,
thing?
it
I
sounds
like
like it's
it.
in generation. So
Yeah. But
I just,
anyways,
I just, I just believe in absolute individual liberties, and so
nice.
people can call me whatever in the heck they want to call me, because if they're not doxing me and they're not threatening me and they're not hurting me, sticks and stones, brothers and sisters, sticks and stones.
Mhm.
So I'm a free speech absolutist, and I believe we don't have the right to never be offended in this country. And when it comes to free speech, um, free speech entails being offended sometimes. And
It
if you don't like
does.
it, turn it off. But I am not offended. I am a biological man. Didn't have time to get all dolled up tonight, but I am a drag artist. I prefer the term drag artist instead of drag queen, because drag queens are no longer, it's no longer like a fun joke. It's become a militant leftist tool for the left to indoctrinate and confuse people about gender. And the origins of dressing up to make people laugh never had anything to do with gender. In the past, everybody knew that's a man in a wig cracking jokes, entertaining people for the sake of entertainment. And now we see with Drag Queen Story Hour and with the groomers in schools and in every single drag show across America, it's not about men dressing up to make people laugh or be silly or have a good time. It's about indoctrination. So I prefer the term drag artist because it is, to me, it is a work of art. It's, totally transforming yourself into something totally different, having a good time, color, makeup, wigs, fashion, all that stuff. So anyway, that was a very long answer, but yes, you could call me him the whole time. I am not a
Okay.
woman.
Well, and I've got two comments to say. Now, uh, it would have been cool had you dressed up in costume or got into character for this, because when we met you at Stansbury Park at that Utah revival thing, I had my niece there. My niece was at the time 11 or whatever, and I brought her up to meet you. She was excited, and she goes, "Oh, she's so beautiful." And because you wear a dress that would make a Disney princess jealous, and everything else. So she was excited about that. But back to the drag artist thing. Um, I often wonder, is this kind of militant drag artist? I don't feel like that would absolutely be common across all of the artists. I feel like that's a niche and they're just the loudest ones. I can't imagine that everyone who participates in this looks at stealing a child's childhood um, as a positive thing. I can't imagine
that
even
that
most of them see
that's an
that.
excellent point, and I guess I should probably generalize a little less, or generalize a little less. When it comes to the LGBTQIA alphabet mafia, good old fashioned gay men don't have a voice anymore.
Oh
We
yeah,
have to bow down to the
yeah.
radical Marxist, communist, transgenderism narrative and stay silent. So you're absolutely right.
Well, how
Um,
about the lesbians? Where now there's all these articles coming out that lesbians. It gives it sounds like they want to force lesbians into relationships with transgender women
oh,
who still.
they're erasing lesbians, and they're
Yeah.
erasing biologically same-sex attracted people. And I get in trouble for saying this, but I openly say that I truly don't understand what a person with gender dysphoria who wishes to surgically disfigure their body and live as the opposite gender has to do with good old-fashioned gay and lesbian people. The two lesbians driving their Subaru out back up in Park City, just living their best life. Nobody cared. No one cares. Literally. In America, 2022, nobody cares about your lesbian neighbors. Everybody has their gay best friend, their gay hairstylist, whatever. It's this radical new, never expanding alphabet that is doing more harm than good. And that's why people like me are stepping away. And I will say this, I've had phone calls from big names in drag, very famous on the East Coast. And they said, please never stop what you're doing. We just can't do it. We can't say anything or we'll lose everything. And I got fired from the airlines. It rhymes with Schmelta Airlines. I got fired for my posts in drag, holding guns and standing up against Black Lives Matter. And I did lose everything coming out of the closet as a conservative. And coming out of the closet as a conservative was quite literally 1,000 times more difficult than it was to come out of the closet as a gay Mormon after my LDS mission. 1,000 times harder.
Where'd you go on your mission to?
France.
Oh, you went to France.
France. Yeah, I went to France.
I had a buddy that went on
I'm
a
just
mission.
being snarky on my French vocabulary.
I had a buddy who went to France.
Umpu. Parlez-vous umpu.
I had a buddy that went to France on his mission, and he told me a story that he run into. I have since found out the name of this religion, but they're called Raelians, Raelian religion, and they're a religion that it's kind of a sex-based religion that worships aliens. And man, I fell out when he told me about that.
And it's in France?
It's all over Europe. They've got it in the US as well, but the head honcho is a French guy. And I don't know, if you get the chance, look it up, Raelians. It's an interesting.
I don't think I ever had the exciting privilege of meeting those people. I did meet a lot of angry French people, and I met a lot of Africans who joined the church and wanted to get baptized because cool, man. And then as soon as the missionaries left, they left the church, and it was kind of a farce in France. They actually shut down the mission I was in, the first one, because it was just like going nowhere. And then I was transferred to the Paris mission. And so I'm grateful for it. And I openly say that it sounds weird, but I'm very, very much still culturally Mormon. And I am grateful that I was a missionary. I'm grateful that I'm an Eagle Scout. I'm grateful for those
you
values
tick off,
that I was taught.
You tick off the Mormon good boy trifecta, and then top it off at the end with a pink frosting.
Exactly.
Now, how are your parents with all this?
Well, both of my parents are dead,
Oh, I'm
unfortunately.
sorry.
God bless them. They both died in car accidents because of car accidents. So when I first came out of the closet as a gay Mormon, so as a teenager, of course I had gay feelings. I knew I was dealing with that, but I just sort of knew that it would go away eventually. And if I was the perfect missionary, it would be gone by the time I came home. And I was the perfect missionary. Like, I was zone leader, I was everything. So I came home and I was like, oh no, still got a thing for Ricky Martin and not, Anna Nicole Smith. So what am I going to do? So
do you think that's what drove you to the Eagle Scout as well? Because that's gaining Eagle Scout is not a insignificant thing. It's a journey.
It was. And I did everything I could to be the perfect kid. And it's not just because I was gay. It was because as a good Mormon kid, I was raised in a very safe environment. You have activities, you have scouts. I'm in theater. I'm in student council. I'm doing community service projects. So I didn't really have to worry about sexuality, which is kind of the beauty of being raised LDS, because even straight kids, boys and girls, everybody, you're not focused on sexuality. You're focused on living your best teenage years and getting good grades and getting into BYU. And it was a great safety net. And I didn't really have to deal with homosexuality, just like a lot of, devout LDS kids don't have to deal with their sexuality either. It's not your priority.
Which
So
I
came
think
home.
I think that's probably a good thing, to allow kids to shadow kids from sexuality. But again, I don't know whether it's a good thing. I hope the church, I don't know. I hope conservatism, which I think they have as a whole, opens up to not just homosexuality, but I think, transgenders, if there's some out there, of course there's that white lady. What's her first name?
Blair White.
Open up and bring them in, because we need to make we need to not shun people, I think, for things that we don't want to be out in the open. We shouldn't shun people for that. We want your public feelings, how you feel about the Bill of Rights, how you feel about, government spending, even though I don't think the Republicans care about that last one either. But,
absolutely. The whole message of someone like myself, or even Blair White or Brandon Strzok or Scott Pressler, or any of those of us who are in the public spotlight as gay conservatives, our message first and foremost is basically the only reason we share that we're gay is because we want to point out the fact that other people can join the conservative movement, because you are an American first. And in an ideal world, I wouldn't even have to ever say I'm gay. It doesn't matter to me.
Well,
It's
and also you're
an
adult. You're not a teenager, where right now
Right.
it seems like I don't know if
The focus is on grooming children in the schools.
100%.
Yeah, and even if
that is why, and
even-
that's why we are militantly stepping away from it, because it's like, y'all, just knock it off in my name, because I have 56 nieces and nephews, and I was an effeminate 9-year-old kid. I used to sneak and wear my sister's prom dresses. I love Barbie, My Little Pony, all of it. Today, I would have been one of these children victimized by the brainwashing and the grooming to think that I'm in the wrong body. And they would have drugged me. They would have mutilated me. They would have permanently altered my body with puberty blockers. And I would have been suicidal. And my actual sexual function would have been permanently altered, because you can't take a man and inject him with that estrogen over and over and over and expect him to have a fulfilling sexual experience later in life. It's child abuse.
That's the big thing. You're taking away, let's face it, the sexual experience is one of the, I don't know, if you're a religious person, they had to add that in or there'd be no people. It is one of the highest elevations you can reach. And by their move to I guess chemically castrate these young men and women, they're taking that ability away from them.
Well, they force them into this culture by doing that. And then they have to grow up that way. Because, let's face it, in the church, you're motivated to get married and have children. Now, the tranny culture, you can't have children and make baby trannies. You can't do that. You have to go out there and find prey to manipulate into that culture.
Well,
because you can't reproduce that culture biologically. You have to actually go out there and kind of like those insects that have to lay their eggs in some other insect's nest. It's that kind of a reproductive.
Again, I don't even think it would be half of transgenders actually buy into this. I think they're just hanging on by a thread, keeping their mouth shut. I just think it's a small militant
so are
group.
90% of regular mainstream conservative Trump supporters.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
They're just hanging on.
90%, my friends. I went to the Capitol to stand up for women's sports. And I like that you keep adding that in. An adult transgender person who's living their life, like, you know, Bruce Jenner or whatever, I don't think they necessarily have a nefarious agenda. There are people who want to live that way. And if they're an adult, God bless you. We don't get it, but God bless you. We're not going to pay for it. Don't push it on everybody else. Live your life. But when it comes to being silenced, yes, I would say, well, the main group of transgender people who are completely silenced are detransitioners. As soon as they share their story, they are kicked off of Twitter. They are called transphobic. They are called fake news. And these are adult people who are just basically telling the world, look, I was convinced when I was a teenager to take these hormones. It altered my brain. It altered my body. And then I did procedures to my genitalia. And I don't have a fully functional whatever it was before now. And I'm miserable and I'm suicidal. And I want people to not do this to kids. Wait until you're an adult. That's all we ask.
Wait until you've at least experienced the sexual pleasure with your preferred gender first, you know? Well, if you feel like you're
18 is a good age.
18, I mean, but also, you know, I think the therapist, and this is going to sound harsh and rash, but I think the therapist should say, okay, have you had gay sex yet? Or, you know, should ask them, have you done this yet? Because we're going to be taking that away from you. And imagine the trauma that most of them are young adults, but imagine the trauma that they're feeling. Their whole life is altered hugely, that you can't take it back. Yeah.
Right. Honestly, like, this topic really does, it really hurts my heart because I was one of these kids. They would have done this to me.
Yeah.
They would have said, you are not a boy, you are a girl. And they could have ruined my life. I wouldn't have an Adam's apple. I wouldn't be 6'2". I wouldn't be strong. I would be drugged and I would be addicted to drugs. That's the other thing they don't talk about is once you're on those drugs, you're on them for life and there are major side effects. And to do this to kids, it breaks my heart because there's no such thing as like an effeminate gay kid anymore. He's somehow in the wrong body when the reality is he's just a biological boy who likes pink.
Or even worse, what about an effeminate straight kid? Where they've taken a straight kid and totally, well, and it seems to be happening more from all the studies. It seems to be happening more with females than males. And I think that's because females fall into cliques harder into groups harder in those adolescent ages, where males can still peel off and run around, but females really, you know.
Well, the other reason for that, and this is also something no one ever talks about. Let's say there's a 13-year-old girl, okay? And her greatest desire is for her breasts to disappear. So she tapes them or she has them removed and she wears baggy clothes. She cuts off her pretty long hair. She stops wearing makeup. Realistically, we have to ask, why would sexual body parts, well, not their breasts are sexual, they're not to me, but you know what I mean, like boobs and all that, why would that be so horrifically bad that you don't even want someone to see it and you want to get rid of it? The reason is, in a large percentage of these cases, is that girl was abused and she views her body parts as potentially attractive to more abuse. And so by becoming masculine and becoming a trans man and cutting her hair short and dressing macho and appearing bigger and stronger and taller than she is, that's her revenge against the abusers who made her feel ashamed and dirty with her body. And detransitioners often talk about that. They openly admit, the reason I wanted to be a boy is because being a girl and everything to do with femininity and sexuality for her when she was younger was associated with that trauma. But see, that's the first question a therapist should ask a young girl or a boy. Hey, you know, who told you? What makes you feel? Because, you know, you have these parents saying, my little boy was in the bath and he looked down and said, Mommy, I don't want. It's like, no. This doesn't, No biological being on the planet would look at its own biology and reject it without being coerced and convinced to do so. And so this is grooming parents. This is parents who want attention. This is woke parents out to appear so modern and advanced, and they're so proud of their trans 3-year-old and all this stuff. Has nothing to do with the kids, and it's straight up child abuse. And I've said this before, and I know I get in trouble for saying this, but look at Elizabeth Smart. This girl was kidnapped, essentially tortured, and raped. Yeah. She is now living her best life because what happened to her was overcomable. What they are doing to these trans children, little boys like I was, is not something they can ever overcome. They cannot move on from permanent physical body alterations, mental, emotional, all of it. They cannot ever fully recover from that, especially if you go into the surgeries. So I think it is on the level of rape, similar to what happened to Elizabeth Smart. I really do. I think it's that evil to do this to young people. Am I calling adult transgender people predators? No. Am I saying trans people are not good people and they shouldn't have their rights? No. I am saying doing this to any child is horrific child abuse, and it should be punished the same way they punish female genital mutilation in Islamic countries.
Can you explain for our audience what detransitioners are? Because that's not a topic many people get to hear about.
Yeah, well, that's because it's a topic that it's just like election integrity or the jab truths. You can't talk about it. It gets taken down immediately. So yes, detransitioners, you can still Google it and find the people's stories. A detransitioner is a person who at one point in their life believed that they were the opposite gender, and they went through the hormones or the surgeries or the procedures to become the opposite gender, so to speak, even though that is biologically impossible. So they were living their life as the opposite gender, and then they ultimately regretted it because of the reasons we've discussed, because of the lack of sexual sensation, because of the drug addiction, the addiction to estrogen or testosterone in order to maintain your appearance. Your masculine appearance, if you're a biological woman, you have to have that testosterone. You're a testosterone junkie so that you get the deeper voice, so you can grow the hair. And if you're a man, you have to take that estrogen to raise your voice, to keep your masculine elements of your body down. So these people just openly admit, never should have done it. I wish I hadn't done it. I did it because I was coerced into doing this by other people. And many of them are very angry with the adults in their lives who convinced them to do this at a young age. Just like the girl who was on Tucker Carlson a little while back. Brave, beautiful young girl who was into becoming a boy, and she regretted it, and she shares her story of trauma. And of course, no one hears her story. She, they call it transphobia to talk about reality, just like they call it misinformation to talk about the needle and say, hey, wait a minute, wait, blood clots, what?
I still kind of wonder where this is coming from, because for some reason, it all feels very coordinated. Like it came on very fast over. I mean, what was the first story we heard about it? Was that Amazing Desmond?
Well, it feels coordinated because it's so well funded, and you can't have something that's that well funded and not be well coordinated. I mean, this isn't it's an attack on American culture without a doubt.
Well, I can tell you exactly how this came about, how we reached this point, because it all started, some might call it the slippery slope, gays, gay marriage, all of that stuff. And okay, but I want to call it a slippery slope.
But me personally,
we accepted gay people, we stopped killing them, we stopped putting them in prison, but they needed a new powerful victim narrative. And what is more powerful than defending trans children? Do you see, if they can present themselves as the saviors of an ever expanding alphabet group of people who get to identify as victims, then they have the power of saying, we are the saviors of these so-called minorities. And especially if they can just, if they can use children and the suicide narrative and all of that to manipulate people. So the Human Rights Campaign, GLAAD, the Democrat Party, they realized nobody cares about the gay issue anymore, but we still need a victim narrative. So that's where they're getting the funding. And it's well orchestrated through the Human Rights Campaign, through all of the organizations that get millions and millions of dollars. Why? Because they present themselves as the protectors and the saviors of these alleged victims, which are victims they actually create. That's why they're doing it, because nobody cares about gays and lesbians anymore. It's over. We understand it, whatever, live your life. So they have to keep doing that. And of course, it's $1 billion pharmaceutical industry now. Like trans kids in like what, 2000, there were like one out of every, I don't even know, I'm just throwing this out there, like one out of every, 500,000 kids.
Probably.
Now every single school, every single family is dealing with this alleged transgenderism that wasn't there before. Pharmaceutical companies are making billions of dollars on these hormones.
That's a good point. Female transgenderism has gone up. I don't know. I could throw the actual statistic if I looked for it, but it's something like 4,000% in 10 years. It's such a number that you're just like something, and that's in just a decade. But so now the gay marriage, me personally, I'm glad that, one, I don't think the government should be involved in marriage. I think that should be something that's done with maybe a lawyer or a minister or someone who can draw up the papers and say, all right, this is I don't think the government needs to be involved in that, but I don't think
I wasn't saying that gay marriage was necessarily like a dangerous slope, but I'm saying we got gay marriage, things were fine. And now they're creating this craziness.
I think the conservatives screwed up on that gay marriage thing. I think they screwed up hard. They should have just said, oh, they want to get married. Great. I mean, honestly, the conservatives should have said, you know what? Yeah, we've got laws against it. Let's pull the government out of marriage.
Yeah. That's the libertarian narrative, Jared. Conservatives are still into government.
But that's what they should.
I agree with that. I take the libertarian stance on marriage. And at that point, I think we should have just asked the fundamental question, why is the government telling us who we can marry anyway? The Episcopal Church wants to marry a couple of gays, and the Mormon Church wants to have their temple ceremonies. It's nobody's damn business. Why is the government involved at all? And people can always legally arrange things and figure things out legally and sign a contract with one another. There's a million ways around that. But the militant side of the gay movement, they didn't want civil unions. They didn't want equality. They wanted to erase the definition of marriage as it is between a man and a woman, because marriage is between a man and a woman. That's the fundamental definition of the word. A gay marriage, I'm divorced. I was married, had a wonderful ceremony, got married and everything. But you have to understand the militant side of the gay movement in the past, and obviously the aggressive Marxist side of this new LGBTQIA plus wave is not about inclusion. It's not about tolerance. It's about societal transformation and cultural dominance, not inclusion, not equality. It's about cultural dominance.
And that's what I was
and morally.
That's what I was coming to is it feels like they're just trying to keep the culture on its heels all the time. Always.
So you called it unearned validation, kind of like a virtue signaling addiction.
That's
correct?
the kids thing. That's the kids are going to get validated by teachers and peers. But no, I'm talking about, I do think it is a neo-Marxist movement that's trying to keep this culture on its heels all the time. Because let's face it, they wouldn't be able to go to China and play this game. They're definitely not going to the Middle East. Russia might actually throw them off a building still. The only places they can truly play this, I mean, they can't go to France and play it because French people are doing French stuff all the time. Doesn't matter the sexuality.
They get to play this game in France with the French people, but because of their massive Islamic immigration and takeover from Africa and Islamic countries, they can't get away with it with them. But they can get away with it with the leftist little French people because they're weak, spineless little French people. Sorry, no offense.
Yeah.
I live there. I know them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're both veterans. We call them rifle drop and surrender monkeys. But either way, I'm sorry for.
I concur, my friend. I concur. I love the food. I love the history. I love Versailles. Oh, it's great. But when it comes down to the actual French spirit, they are a broken, conquered people, and they don't have.
Let me tell you why. France had Napoleon, and right now Germany is the same country France is, because Germany had another guy whose name starts with an H we don't need to talk about. When you have that brutal conqueror, your country recoils in on itself. And I'm afraid we might see ourselves come out. It's after you lose. The brutal conqueror brings a loss. I'm afraid we might see ourselves close. We might see us close in on ourselves after all of our gallivanting over the world over the last 70 years, 80 years. Because let's face it, we've clocked a lot of L's up on the board.
Well, and honestly, my friends, by the way, thank you for your service. That's incredible. You probably get sick of people saying that because we don't understand what it was. But
Dave went over there. I got out in 98. I didn't see anything except,
You served in Dugway.
I served in Dugway. No, I didn't. Nope. I went to Dugway after I got out of the service. No.
Well, we are currently a conquered people in the United States, and I don't know how that happened. The masks was the perfect example of that. We thought we were free. We thought we were independent. We thought we cared about liberty, but even the most staunch conservatives masked their little children without asking questions.
See,
so we have seen that we are no longer a freedom-based people. We are also a culturally conquered people, and we don't understand what liberty and courage and freedom really are anymore.
You're in Salt Lake. You should have came out to Tooele during that time, because mask wearing was not half as common.
It was looked down upon.
It was looked at. I mean, you'd walk into the store and say, "Hey, where's your mask?" You just walk past them. Poof. In the store, do your shopping.
Oh, God bless you. That really gives me hope.
Well, that's what we're looking at.
To Tooele.
Yeah. You know what? That's what we're looking at. We're looking at rural versus urban split, and that's where we're at. And like, one thought I've been playing around in my head is Utah seems to be kind of mealy-mouthed on the conservatism train, right? But Utah has a rather large metro area, talking Provo up to Ogden. I consider it all one big city, because when you drive up there, it's nothing but house store, and traffic. So it's all one big city. I don't care what you call it. And I think that's why we have a state that's not really going to be bold. But then you get to some states like Louisiana, which has down in the very bottom has one city. But other than that, it's all rural. And they're coming out with, in my opinion, kind of too far to the right laws, but they're coming out with them, and I think our split is rural and urban, where your power is held. Is it held in an urban area or a rural area?
Well, and that's why the Democrats and the people on the left know that their ultimate goal would be for all of us to live on top of each other, have nothing, be happy, take public transport. Home ownership is frowned upon because of so-called climate change. The nuclear family, having children, is frowned upon. So their goal on the left is to make all of us live in a hellhole like Salt Lake City, because compared to Tooele and the rest of Utah, Salt Lake is a hellhole. It's awful. Homeless people everywhere, crime, meth heads, break-ins. I mean, just look at the statistics. And then you've got murals of criminals on the buildings, and you've got, just Aaron Mendenhall, little communist governor out there. So yeah, their goal is to make us all move into metropolitan areas, and they want us all to be like LA, Chicago, New York, Salt Lake. And you guys are the enemy to the Democrats, because you probably if you live in Tooele, you probably own a home. You probably have a nice big lawn that you water. You probably have some kids and some property and some guns and some gas guzzling trucks out there.
I lost all my guns at the Rod and Gun Club I went to last weekend, but fishing poles made it. Anyways, no. And
yeah, I lost all my guns too. I don't know. I was hiking and they just fell off a cliff. They're all gone. IRS, government. I don't know. I just don't know where they went.
Well, and that's where, whenever I hear this talk about them trying to gather us into metropolitan areas, it reminds me of the comic book Judge Dredd. And there's lots of other dystopians, but where you lived in the cities and that was where everyone lived. And then people out in the wastelands were cannibals and they were looked down upon and shunned from society. And that's kind of what it reminds me of whenever we talk about this. And there is a desire to draw people into cities, but people are running away from cities right now. And
if I win my lawsuit, can't talk about it, but if I do, I'm not gonna buy a house in Sugar House.
Yeah.
Right. Can I ask you this, because I'm very close to a certain airline as well?
Of course, yeah.
Is that lawsuit to do with anything in particular about that? Is that right? Can you even say that?
I have to talk in super generalities right now, but I think I can answer the question. Mm-hmm. So, can I talk about a friend of mine?
Yeah, sure. Talk about him.
Okay. So my friend was fired from his job in the airline industry because of his social media. He never once did anything illegal, and he never once associated his employer with his social media. Mm-hmm. Zero way of connecting the two. Never. My friend was let go from the airlines without, let's say, a fair trial. Total, blatant, obvious discrimination because of the nature of my friend's posts, which were pro-gun, pro-Trump, anti-Black Lives Matter violence. There was nothing in the post that merited losing, an almost decade-long career in the airline industry. So my friend is definitely pursuing justice in that department, and things so far look like he has reason to smile. Sorry, good. Just gotta be careful here, but yeah. They the corporations out there, whether it's Disney or Schmelta or whatever, Nike, they are far left. They are in on the globalism and the New World Order's agenda, which is not a myth. It's absolutely an orchestrated plan to destabilize the United States, empower China, usher in communism. So all of those companies are trying to weed out the bad seeds, and they have no problem doing it very publicly.
What a way to socially engineer your society is if I have a personal life that's totally separate from my employer, and then my employer can now invade that.
Well, it sounds like we've met someone who had an ESG firing. To bring it back
What's
to that.
What's ESG?
Environmental social governance. It's the new
social credit score.
It's the corporate led fascism. It's not fascism, because fascism is government led corporatism. This is corporatism led government. So it's like,
and they use the corporations in place of the government. You're absolutely right. It's a social credit score. It's policing what you do in your off time. And let's say you work for Chick-fil-A, and you're you're a hunter you go to Africa and hunt, okay? And if you post pictures in Africa shooting a lion wearing a Chick-fil-A hat, then they can have a problem. And I get that. I'd be like, yeah, you know what? Don't wear a company logo when you're doing your personal life. But if that person is hunting and not saying they work for Chick-fil-A and not even identifying publicly as a Chick-fil-A hamburger flipper, then Chick-fil-A has no right whatsoever to dictate what they do in their off time, unless it's illegal or they're hurting somebody. You know what I mean? You can fire somebody if they have 10 DUIs or something bad. Right?
Oh, yeah. That's one thing. But the ESG, I don't think boils down on targets of criminality. Maybe if it came in and was set standard, it would. But right now, it boils down on targets of liberty, really. That's who they tend to go after. Like that. Remember that dentist that shot Cecil the lion? Do you guys remember that?
Yeah.
And he got hammered, lost his business, he got hammered, and he went out and shot the lion that the wardens and the guides told him to shoot. It's not like he went out by himself, wandered into the Serengeti. He went on a guided hunt. And
yeah, it's ESG. I've got to look into that, because it isn't technically the government who destroyed my friend's life.
Yeah.
Government had nothing to do with it.
It's like reverse fascism with the same end goal. It is, instead of government running corporations towards the value of the government, it's corporations running the government towards the value of corporations.
Anyone who holds power over another person can become fascist in orientation. Yeah, if I'm an employer,
fascist has an actual definition. It's government. It's government dictating to corporations how to run for the benefit of government. This is corporations dictating the government how to run in benefit of the corporations. And that leads into elite capture. Elite capture is one of the new big buzzwords, and that's how China is defeating us, because China has all of our elites bought. Jeff Bezos isn't going to turn his back on China. He stands to make too damn much money. Disney isn't going to turn their back on China. ABC is a part of Disney. They're not going to turn their back on China. China could probably commit an act. Would we see it reported on our news?
Oh, they could put people in concentration camps.
But let's say
Taiwan.
Yeah, if they invaded Taiwan.
No one's going to say a word. No one's going to say a word.
And no one's talked about this. Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Might that have been prodded on by China? Just Russia's sacrificial to them, and they've never been friends. Maybe they could, goad Russia into doing something in Ukraine, whisper in the ear. I'm not saying they did, but maybe they could. And that would be kind of a dress rehearsal to see what the West would do. Because right now, what could we do to stop Taiwan? Taiwan is this far from China, and it's a long way from us. Yeah, we've got a Navy that could, hold out, but they would have Taiwan covered overnight.
Well, China really has us. They've got us in a tight grip. For example, so I just recently got banned from TikTok permanently because I said biological men can never become biological women. That's all I said. And TikTok
crazy.
Is owned by China, and the thing they sent, the message they sent didn't say you are permanently banned, or you're permanently banned. It said you permanently banned. Why are you? You permanently banned. And here's the thing: when you go on TikTok, they promote the most degrading, evil music as suggested music to use with your videos when it comes up. Evil shows like Euphoria, which is essentially pornographic drug use for teenagers, and they push trans, and this is owned by China. They're that smart. They have banned effeminate men from their television.
Yeah, that's another thing. Now Russia, I don't think needs to make laws like that, because they still have wolves and bears eating people in that country. I think as long as you have that, you don't have an issue with, I'm just saying, population weeds itself out. You got to learn to run. You got to learn to kill. It's just going to weed itself out. But China, a little bit softer. They've been brought into the kind of modern economic sphere. Now they're writing these laws. They're going on the extreme writing these laws. And I would love to go to China, buy a phone in China, as a faux Chinese person, and see what TikTok in China looks like. And I've often wondered that, because I enjoy looking at TikTok. The site is funnier than hell. But what would it look like if I was Chinese watching it? Would it be all Chinese, patriotic and masculine and all that other stuff? Which my TikTok, let's face it, doesn't have a lot of transgender stuff on there, because I don't fit that algorithm. I watch guns and baby animals. That seems to be my
but
thing.
if you were to look up anything to do with trans, you would have an endless stream of content.
And that's content. When I first got on there, I noticed that.
I guarantee no.
And that's the thing. What do you think? Do you think that they cultivate that stuff and ship it to the US and then cultivate something else and keep it in China? Because we are the Chinese enemy and they're our enemy.
That's exactly what they're doing. What better way to defeat your enemy than from within? by poisoning and abusing and mutilating and ruining the lives of their children and destroying their families. It's smart. Kudos, China. You guys are brilliant.
And all they have to do is make a TikTok video.
It was two Chinese Air Force generals that lined this out in 78, that lined out exactly what they're going to do. This level of asymmetric warfare. Two Chinese Air Force generals sat down and wrote this, and they've been following it, and it's been very successful. And they haven't had to fire one shot at us, and they're defeating us.
And they never will.
Yeah.
Because as Abraham Lincoln said, we'll never be destroyed by an external enemy. An external force will never destroy us. If we fail, it will be from within. And that's what we've seen. And no external force took away our freedoms and forced people to abuse their children by masking them in schools. People willingly did it themselves from within.
Now, China is doing that stuff. I mean, we could talk about Shanghai right now. Did you watch the
killing?
Oh yeah, the animal killings. But did you watch the drone footage? So they've got
beating the people.
No, they've got drones that fly around, and it says something like, "Restrain your heart's desire to be free." It's one of them quadcopter drones. But then they've got those dog drones, the ones that are
going through with the microphone.
They've got a microphone literally duct taped to this damn dog robot walking around barking orders. And that, for some reason, that freaked me out. The copter drone should freak me out more, but it doesn't. The dog one, the walking ones, that freaks me out. I start thinking, how am I going to take down a robot that's chasing me? Because I've seen Terminator. I've seen that documentary. I know where we're headed.
So you need to know how, because that's coming. The fusion of technology and all that. The dog right now just has a microphone, but how far off is it until it has a smoke bomb or
a taser,
a bullet,
a
laser, a taser, or something to make somebody paralyzed,
or just
like
or just a big damn spike. The dang thing can run I think it can run 12 miles an hour. Now, a man can outrun it, but for how long? And I'm kind of a chunky dude. I may not be able to outrun it at all, but even if I can, I better hope it's not running with the latest NiCad battery. I'm hoping it's got double A's in there to peter out quick. Otherwise, I'm going to have a hole poked in me.
Well, technology is going to it already has taken a very ugly turn. It started with the social conditioning of getting everyone to check in and let everybody know where they are and what they're doing at all times, and having no problem saying, "Oh, I'm here with my friends in McDonald's at this time here." In the past, that we would have, 80s, 90s, whatever, people would have said, "Heck no, I'm not telling somebody where I am all the time. It's an invasion of my privacy." And now you're photographed all the time. You're used to sharing. There's no sense of privacy. And now that we've seen that people are willing to mask themselves, knowing they don't need to be wearing that mask, mark my words, gentlemen, chip in the wrist is coming.
Well, what about, two things, three things. Okay. What about over the last 2 years, they have rushed to make facial recognition work with masks on. It's just a statement. I just got an update on my iPhone, and it said that right off the bat. Take a picture with the mask on. We need to be able to, I'm like, I don't wear masks. I haven't worn one in.
Wow.
But
I love it. I get on my phone, check my email, get into my Wells Fargo, whatever, facial recognition. But see, we're conditioned to it. So little by little, the invasion of our autonomy and our privacy, it's just there. And as we know, from Alexa to our iPhones, all of this, all that small print that we sign away every time we download something, we don't even know how much surveillance there really is.
I've seen South Park. I know what they do with that. They end up making you into the human Sentai pad. I don't know if you guys have seen South Park.
All you have to do is say, I'm interested in Suits. And then all of a sudden your phone is showing you advertisement.
Thanks, Dave. Now I'm going to see nothing but Suits.
I bought a suit today, and I was a victim of that last week.
But so we're looking at, but the what else was I going to point out? Do you think that cell phones introduced in the 80s? I was born in the 70s. Dave was born in the 70s.
Jared, have you heard of the pocket crystal?
No.
This was the first version of the cell phone that attempted to come out. And the surveys for the public were just as he was saying. People do not want all this invasion of privacy.
So do you think the cell phone would have failed then, where it had to wait for just the right time? So
it did fail then. It did fail then. They had the technology. They had the product. It was ready to go. They could not gain the momentum.
Well, was it price that held them back? Was there other things around it, like price or something else? Because remember, cell phones first came out, it was like $200 for a cell phone. Of course, it was $85 a month for your service plan.
Well, Google Glasses came out. They didn't catch on, but they worked.
Google Glasses failed because the birth control glasses you got in boot camp were smaller.
Either way, it just couldn't catch on, but eventually it did. Eventually they got you where they want you.
And who is it now that's coming out with the new glasses? It's I just saw an advertisement for it, and they look streamlined, they look everything else, but yeah. I remember the Google glasses. You wore a pair of Army birth control glasses that had these side frames that would have made Oakley jealous, and they poked out like yonder, and then had a 4-megapixel camera on it that, the side. I mean, if you rode a bicycle, you'd have drag and pull your head off the side. I remember those. I was thinking I couldn't wait until the first person forgot to shut it off and went in the bathroom taking a leak, and all his friends and family are watching. But
yeah, all this just sort of exemplifies the importance of coming together, whether you're gay or a drag queen or an adult transgender person, and not letting them distract us from the fundamental core of what we have to fight for. And that's individual liberty, individualism itself. I'm a big fan of Ayn Rand and Atlas Shrugged and Fountainhead. Individual liberty is what our country is founded on, not the good of the community. Well, and now we've been brainwashed into thinking of the so-called good of the community before your individual liberty, you and your family.
Well, here's another question. Okay, so you're a fan of Ayn Rand and her political theories. Have you heard of objectivism?
Oh, of course. I've studied it. Yes, so absolutely.
Do you think that maybe that might be your political party if it wasn't that the Republicans were the only kind of open party semi to it, at least vocally the open party to it, where the Democrats are totally against it? And I often wonder that, like, I see a lot of people that are part of the the Republican Party that I think wouldn't be a part of that if they weren't shunned out and just looking for a bigger tent.
I 100% would be the objectivist party. I'm Christian. I'm just generally Christian. I'm not as much anti-religion as she is, but I see where she gets into the collectivism mentality and how it becomes dangerous. And quite frankly, here in Utah with the Mormons, the idea of obedience was very much shoved down their throats, that wearing the mask, masking your children, doing Zoom meetings instead of exercising your right to gather in church was a test of obedience, which was very collectivist.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm only a Republican because I hope that we can change the party. I hope we can oust the rhinos like Mitt Romney and that nasty woman, what's her name, Spencer Cox. I'm hoping we get those nasty women out of office. I hope we usher in real hardcore Republicans and restore the, patriotic, constitutional, America first, make America great again attitude in the Republican Party, instead of this wishy-washy, beta male, pathetic party that, quite frankly, is even worse than the Democrats in many ways, because they say one thing and then they do the other. I would rather just have a radical like Ilhan Omar tell me exactly what she stands for, because she has no problem telling us exactly what she wants.
I mean, she may not.
Republicans, rah, 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 Christian, pro-life, everything's great. And then they expand government behind our backs. The perfect example is George W. Bush.
Yeah, he...
We all believed he was a conservative. We all believed he was, good Christian guy, had his accent, had his cowboy hat.
No new taxes.
Conservative. No, he was just as bad, if not worse, than Obama. You know, now we see that they're best friends. So
definitely. Well, no, it's George and Obama's spouse that are best friends.
What's his name? Mike. Mike or Michael, something like that.
But no, I just wonder. Here's a funny theory. Okay, long story. I'll get around to getting a point of it. So I'm chatting with my sister, and we do a conspiracy podcast together on the side, and we were talking about this new Roe versus Wade argument, and she says, because of the show we do and the stuff we look up, because we look up a lot of government shadiness, you know, MK Ultra and that stuff,
which is real, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Beta kitten programming.
It's real. Oh, yeah. It was a Democrat senator that figured it out during the Church Pike Commission. He drug it all out. But anyways, she says, she brought up the point of Cuomo trying to cull the herd of elderly people. And she says, what if they're going to make abortions illegal because they see that in 10 years, the Social Security system won't be able to support itself? So they're trying to up the new people coming in, which is an interesting thought. But
wow,
you know, that's going drifting way out. And that's kind of what she said to me. And I was like, oh man. So that opened me up. But I know on the show, you guys hear me say, I don't like it when the two sides come together and write a bill, because every time they do, it screws us wholesale. Every time. The NDAA, Patriot Act, all that, it all screws us. But what I would like to see the people go back to where someone else's personal politics didn't matter and didn't run that extreme to where you had to hate them. Like you see people on Facebook today. One friend of mine wrote on there, I'm right. She wrote something pro Roe versus Wade. And she says, I'm just putting this up so I can clean out my friends list. And I was like, that is so weird to want to shun people from you who have a different view on something that in your friend's life, like let's say you're kind of loose friends, right? Let's say you're even fairly close friends, maybe not best friends, but you know, hang out once a month. Wouldn't abortion be something that you guys would be a party to with each other? And that you're going to want to clean them out of your friends list, even though, like, let's say I'm a girl, you know, lovely, the beard and bald, but you know, I'm a lovely lady and I get pregnant and I had to go to get an abortion. I would select, you know, a sibling, probably a sister, or my very best friend, someone that we have already cried together and all that. Not someone who maybe we meet up at the club and twerk once a month, or, you know, not a loose friend. And it just seems weird to me that people would want to purge their acquaintances over something that would never be brought up in normal conversation between the two without the political forced on them part.
Right. Without social media, basically, it wouldn't really come up. And like you talked about conspiracy theories, well, divide and conquer is the oldest rule in the book, you know? And so social media and the fights that it creates and the arguments, even within my own family, it's ugly, and it's taken away the person-to-person context, and it's digitized us to a point where you're not talking to another human being. You're looking at a screen and you're following algorithms and you're communicating under their formats, which are orchestrated to be addictive and to make you upset. The little notifications, like, you know, that say you got 10 likes or something at the top of your Facebook, that's the equivalent of a slot machine making you think, ooh, I won a little bit. Let's keep going. Maybe I'll get more later. It's
game
addictive
theory,
and it's dehumanizing. And that's why this next generation is so gross and so violent. You see all these videos of fights and, people being attacked in the subway by young people who are just vicious and mean, and their weaves are flying all over the place. It's like this, it's just, we've lost our humanity, quite frankly, because we're all staring at a screen, and we as adults are just as bad as the kids, I mean, I don't have the answer, but, yeah, my best friend from kindergarten on, her husband is in Black Lives Matter, black guy, and they were bailing people out during the riots in their city where they live. And she's pro-abortion and just pro everything, and somehow we're still best friends.
That's because you guys built that relationship before this divisive thing came in. I mean, you guys have probably,
right. You're right.
You guys have probably
before
shared
social media. That's right.
You probably shared tragedies and joys beyond,
absolutely.
Like you've witnessed each other's things, and you can dislike what your friend does, but it's this loose relationship that's getting weird to me, where I just want to purge my friends list. It's a virtue signal. And also I'm a political pendulum believer. I think the pendulum has swung to the left. I remember in the 80s and 90s how the Republicans act and the Christian conservatives, they were awful to the gay community. They were awful about all that stuff. And also, just like yesterday, Antifa assaulted a pro-life clinic or something. I remember when Christians were bombing abortion clinics. And I think it's just where that pendulum sits, is where you get this radicalness. And the 90s sat right in the center, and we kind of flowed through, and life was pretty good.
Man, as an 80s/90s kid, I look at the 90s like the 1950s. Mm-hmm. It was so great. It was so innocent. It was so clean, and like, I don't know, maybe it's because I was a kid, but I look back at the music, like, Britney Spears, Backstreet, NSYNC, all the stuff we were listening to. And now these kids have like literal satanic, demonic music and TV shows. And we were outside. The internet came out when I was young. So but you'd get on there and dial in and you'd sit there and like do a little chat or something. It wasn't in your face all day long. I'm just so grateful that I had that experience, because I went to the gas station, and the girl who was at the cash register, I was like, what year were you born? She's like 2001. Wow. And I had taken a picture. I posted it on Facebook with a python, a real one, like the Britney Spears one, and with a gun and a hat and everything. And I showed her the picture, and I was like, okay, I'm going to ask you a question. When you see this picture, you got to tell me the reference. And I showed it, and it's obviously a very Britney-esque pose with the snake. And she was like, Nicki Minaj?
Oh yeah, that Nicki Minaj song that came out, that was and there was music back then. I think the big innocence back then is we had pendulum parody, so there wasn't like an ultimate victim or an ultimate evil, because when the conservatives have the pendulum on their side, they go after an ultimate evil. They get all fired up and they go after an ultimate evil. And when the progressives have one in, they usually try to find an ultimate and prop up an ultimate victim, therefore amplifying that victimhood, like they are with the transgender kids. I'm sure there's probably some young children who are for whatever reason feel transgendered or are transgender. I don't understand any of the ideas of that, but by them propping them up, they've made that spread. They've spread this mental I don't want to call it
illness.
like a mental illness.
It's a mental illness. It's a it's a cancer of identity.
They've caused
because
it to
it's
spread.
attacking the very existence of their biology.
Of who you are, yeah.
That's cancerous.
But they've caused it to spread and grow. And so it's almost like if you took I don't know, schizophrenia, and devised a way to make schizophrenia more common, instead of one in however many, you quadrupled it or, multiplied it by orders of 400 or 4,000. And that's what it feels like they do. Where the Republicans, I remember they were trying to say, oh, you have to teach creationism in science class, which kind of kicked off. And then I don't know if any of you guys remember the satanic panic that came out in the late 80s, early 90s, where they were accusing a whole bunch of daycares. This was the conservatives were accusing a whole bunch of daycares of satanic rituals and underground tunnels and child sacrifice. And people actually spent time in prison over this. One couple from Texas, from Austin, Texas, if I remember, the wife spent 46 and the husband the wife spent 36 and the husband spent 47 years in prison over fiction.
Well, were they sacrificing children in tunnels?
No, they just had a daycare. But it's interesting. Look it up.
I hate, they are looking for the boogeyman, but I hate to say this, but satanic occult rituals are very much well and alive right now.
I'm sure they are. And
Epstein Island.
100%.
Marina
Abramovich. I just wonder if that's not like
Pizzagate.
Well, no, I mean, look, she's a creepy lady. Her spirit cooking is creepy. I also wonder if that's not showmanship to join the club, but then again, it might be. But if you look at the satanic panic, which there was probably instances that things like this happened, I just doubt it happened at a daycare where you filled out an application to get your kid in, you know what I'm saying? I just doubt it did.
Well,
and
where the question still remains, where are all of the missing children?
That's a big question. That is a huge question. I'm going to go anti-conspiracy theorist right now. I'm sure a percentage, probably a strong percentage, are just homeless living on the streets. I'm sure that there is, because there are a lot of homeless teenagers, especially when you get, Salt Lake has nothing compared to LA, some parts of Florida, San Francisco. All the whole West Coast. Look at Portland right now. Portland has a population of, I don't know, couple million, and 100,000 of them aren't homeless. That's insane.
Right.
But
yeah, I'm sure, just with Epstein, with what happened with Epstein's Island, I really do believe that the occult and the ceremonies and the sacrifices and the rituals are more real than we think. I'm not some wacko,
I completely agree. And you can look.
I do think that stuff is going on.
You can look them up, but I honestly believe that Epstein was a honey trap. And I think he was a complete honey trap. Just to, when we're done here, look up Operation Midnight Climax. And I think Epstein is that. He's a honey trap where he gets a wealthy politician to, do something scandalous with a underage person, or maybe that politician's on the conservative side to do something with same sex or a goat, whatever. No one's asking where all the goats are. How many goats do you think they've got pictures of? And I think that's just a honey trap to say, you're violated, now you belong to us.
Well, okay. I don't want to steer the direction of this conversation away from Satan, but we were talking about how the Republican Party was starting to just cave in. And we had an incident right here in Davis County where one of our representatives, a Republican representative, used the word tranny in a sentence. Yeah. And somehow that got a lot of traction. Now,
it was on my dear friend Jonathan Harvey's podcast, The Modern Conservative.
Mm-hmm. And the representative's name is Trevor Lee. He's and he's come out and said, hey, look, I'm sorry I offended people.
So he said tranny on a, see, I'm an old car guy. When someone says tranny, I'm like, oh, Buick or Ford or what, but
but well, look it up on the modern day wiki, and you'll get a better grip of the understanding, maybe. But so where would you see that as a position of the Republican Party, and do you think that's a bad position that the Republican Party took to work against Trevor Lee in the fact that he said that word, or not support him at all? Where would you stand on that?
I think they could have simply said, like I said at the beginning of this, we as Republicans are free speech absolutists. And if people were offended by what he said, we hope that they speak up and that they also make their voice heard as to why they find that word offensive. But we are not the word police. And we want Trevor Lee to feel free to speak freely on a private, well, not private, but on a podcast like the Modern Conservative Podcast, where it is a free speech environment, and he should be able to say what he says. And America, toughen up, sticks and stones, people, sticks and stones. So that's why I want to take back the Republican Party, get a backbone, and say, if Trevor Lee said tranny on a podcast, everyone's going to be just fine.
No, I think just for perspective right now, I am going to show some of your Lady Maga photos, because people might just think that you're just a guy that's, talks about being effeminate.
I'm just totally like your average, like, based,
yeah,
and so, dude.
Yeah,
I should put on my sash. Hold on. My friend told me I should wear the sash, even though I didn't have time to get dressed.
Yeah. Now, when I met you the first time, you were wearing a white sash with red writing and a red dress.
My friend just made this for me. That one's all worn out. It has makeup on it. I gotta do some updates.
Well,
but yeah.
Do people book you for shows, or?
I used to be a very popular drag queen in Utah. I was in the number one show. I was a Britney Spears impersonator. And when the big RuPaul queens would come to town, I was hired to be in those shows. But as soon as I created the second alter persona of Lady Maga USA, their words, not mine, you are excommunicated from any LGBTQ space in Utah. You are a garbage person. And they actually organized a rally to shut down my very first event, and our venue backed out because they were so afraid of the LGBTQIA plus mafia. So as Lady Maga, I've had a few gigs where I've been invited to go and speak, and they've covered like my hotel and flight. That's just, it's far and few between.
Yeah.
Most of what I do is just for free. I go, I march, I do rallies, I do my podcast, I do videos, I go to events. And I just I do a lot of, Facebook live videos just to talk about the issues. But I'm hoping to do merchandise and get more professional at this, because it's been 3 years and I'm broke. So I got to make it a little bit more financially sustainable. And I want to be able to afford to go. There's the big pro-life march in DC next week. I would love to go to stuff like that. So hoping to get more support.
So what's your podcast? Tell us about that.
Anybody listening can just go to ladymagausa.com, LADYMAGAUSA.com. And then if they go to the little menu, they can go to my podcast. I have about 60 episodes on there.
Okay.
And they can follow me on Twitter and Facebook. I got banned from TikTok and kicked off of Instagram for stating biological realities. And the reason I get kicked off so much quicker than most people is because I defy the narrative, and they're afraid of me. And the LGBTQIA plus mafia squad just incessantly reports every single thing I do, trying to get me kicked
they're
off,
watching you. Yeah, you're a member of the tribe. So I come out and they're like, "Oh, that's just a knuckle dragger." Right. That guy operates a hammer for a living. We don't care what he says, but you're one of them.
Well, no, I'm not one of them, but they definitely view me as a traitor.
Yeah.
I don't have the right to say what I'm saying. That's why I posted that Britney Spears snake picture today.
And we just
and it's
flashed
just
that on the screen, and then we flashed the one where it looks like you're going cross-eyed on the screen. Yeah, I think it looks like you're going cross-eyed. We'll throw it back up.
Cross-eyed.
No, he's looking to the.
Are you just
you're looking to
one from the?
Yeah, I'm just going off your Lady Maga.
Or he's looking to the left from his perspective.
Oh, you're looking to the left. Well, it looks like you're going cross-eyed. But you're wearing a "Make America Great Again" hat, and you've got. I'm just pulling up to. I'm just.
I guess I gotta look at that picture again.
It looked cross-eyed to me, but it might
after
be
a few beers, right?
Only a beer. But yeah, but no, it's So I mean, you are the real deal. You're a drag performer and all that stuff. Oh, leftism is a drag.
And I've released a song, and I have a new song coming out. I'm very excited about that. What I'm hoping to do, honestly, is travel and do sort of a stand-up routine that is political with, a very succinct political message, and then perform my new song, and then mingle with the people. That's what I do, hours and hours at a time. I always have just. When I go to CPAC or any rally, there's always like a line of people who really want to hear what I have to say, because they love their gay family members, and they've been rejected by their gay family members, and they don't understand the LGBT radicalism, but they don't want to give up on the fun of gay people. We're fun. You know what I mean? As long as it's kept in appropriate boundaries, and you're just being who you are, not trying to crush religious freedom, not trying to crush the traditional family, not trying to indoctrinate kindergartners, then people love gay people. And up until about 10 years ago, nobody cared. Nobody cared, because everybody knew a drag queen was a man wearing a costume to entertain, not to indoctrinate, not to teach children to twerk in libraries and confuse them about their bodies.
Well, what about that monkey that came into that library that had that big rubber phallus that got thrown out?
Wait, a monkey?
I saw
a guy dressed as a monkey came to the drag queen story hour.
Those are furries then, right? Because the guys who dress up in the costumes like that,
you're gonna have to look it up. This is not furry territory at all. I mean, this one he looked like a goblin monkey, like something off the Labyrinth, but he had I don't know if anyone knows the band Guar, but it looks like he stole some props from that band. And he come hopping in, and the things, and they actually asked, it might have been her. I don't know. I didn't look any deeper than watch the video and laugh my ass off.
Well, it was just debauchery, and they use gay people, and they use the LGBTQ alphabet to justify pure debauchery. I'm sorry. Pride parades are disgusting. The last one I went to, it was right before I released Lady Maga USA. So I was still popular as a drag queen in Utah. And I just interviewed people dressed as a cheerleader, not Lady Maga. Just, hey, if you had 1 minute with President Donald Trump, what would you say? And the responses were astounding. These kids would say things like, I would kill him. I said, you wouldn't really kill him. They said, no, if I could legally get away with it, I would kill him. F him, F him. And then there was a little girl. She was wearing like a little princess dress, and I was out filming, and I saw her, and then right walking past her were two adult women. One woman was on a leash. She had a collar on. She was topless with two X's over her nipples, and she was covered in blood, menstrual blood, being led on a leash by another woman in public in the name of pride. Do you see why I've stepped away?
What did that smell like?
Sorry, guys. Not in my name.
That was a prop, not real, correct?
Was it real menstrual blood?
Oh, God only knows. I wouldn't be surprised if it was real menstrual blood. It was just this.
You'd smell pennies like 2 blocks away. It'd be awful.
I guess maybe that's why Eric Matos didn't want to provide security for that group. I mean,
yeah.
If it really is that horrible, I mean.
No, you guys, if never take your kids, but we're talking adult men walking around in sex gear, people waving phallic objects and dildos in public. It is not a little benign celebration of, oh, gay is happy. No, it is pure debauchery. It's disgusting. It's filthy. it's humiliating, and I want nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the whole idea of a pride parade is stupid anyway, because you should only be proud of what you accomplish. You should only be proud of your values, not your sexuality or your skin color. So I just, people don't, I get in huge fights with my family, and a lot of them have cut me off because they call me excuse me, an internalized homophobe. Because I say, get that rainbow LGBT pride thing out of your profile picture. What are you doing? You don't even know what it's like at the pride parades. And they're you're just homophobic. And I'm
and Douglas Murray must be doing it wrong.
Douglas Murray, who's that? Should I know who that is?
You should look him up. Look up Douglas Murray. He's a British dude, but he's outstanding. Okay. I can't, I have some really close friends who are a lesbian couple, and they go to the pride parade but I don't see them. I've seen them as they left, and they never dress. They might wear a shirt that has rainbow writing on it or something, but I've never seen them go overboard. And I think what needs to happen there, my personal opinion, is I hope that the gay community says, look, we're going to maintain some standards here. You're not going to wear that at our parade. We want to, because I mean, they become parents and grandparents as well, and they should be able to want to take their kids there. So uphold standards. If I went to the 4th of July parade and some guy walked down the street in assless chaps dressed like a cowboy celebrating the West, I would have an issue with that,
Of course, but LGBTQIA+, you get one of those letters, you get a free pass to do whatever you want.
I don't see
and say whatever you want. By the way, Trevor Lee gets in trouble for saying tranny. Let's talk about the language they use for Christians and Mormons and white people and President Trump.
And that's a word I didn't know it was a bad word. I use it. I mean, it's like the word retard. When I learned, that's a bad word.
We learned,
and I use that word all the time.
We learned that on,
and then they're telling me I'm a bad person because I use that word, and it's like you that was my culture back then. It wasn't a bad thing. It wasn't a big deal. But now I'm being upheld by these new standards of this new generation, and it's like I think they're insane.
Language police. You can blast Cardi B all day long to 10-year-olds, and they can say the N-word and be explicit and disgusting, but don't you dare say tranny or retard.
Yeah. I remember when I was a kid growing up, I've probably told this story here before, but they used to have on like ABC or whatever, they used to have Wednesday's Child, which was a kid with issues like physical or mental issues that was trying to get adopted. And so when we were harassing our buddy, this is elementary school, maybe beginning of junior high, we'd call each other Wednesday's children or Wednesday's child. And we were brutal back then. It was, it was awful.
You guys, and here's the thing. I understand what it's like to be bullied. I was incessantly bullied from the time I could talk. In school, they called me faggot, fairy, Rihanna. That's why I go by Rihanna Woods on Facebook.
So they used that name as a pejorative, and you owned it.
That's exactly right.
That's
I remember
good.
It was in 6th grade. Kelsey, you know how you put your desks in the little groups of 4?
Mm-hmm.
And Kelsey would always call me Rihanna. And I said, shut up, Kelsey.
It was a girl that was teasing you?
Oh, yeah. All of them. Mr. Wilson, she's calling me that again. He says, Kelsey, leave him alone. And then she would just mouth it.
Oh.
I had to get a variance to another junior high school instead of the one that I was going to, because the 7th graders would torment me on their bikes. They smashed eggs on my head. They said they'd circle me and I'd run and hide. It was really, really bad. So I do understand that we don't want to be bullies. We don't want to be mean. But at the same time, it made me stronger, and I learned to toughen up a little bit, and we did what we had to do. I'm not justifying bullying, but I am saying an adult person saying the word tranny on a private podcast called The Modern Conservative, where pretty much anything goes, is not going to hurt anybody. And for the GOP to come out and cry about it like a bunch of little whiners just was really caving to the cancel culture of the left.
Do you know specifically who in the GOP was crying?
What's her name? Spencer Cox. I think she might have been crying about it.
See, and I don't see why that would be an issue that a party needs to speak up for.
Because they're afraid of the left. They're afraid of the left. They are bullies. They will cancel you. They will label you transphobic. They will label you homophobic. And we all just need to be a little more like Ann Coulter and say, so be it. So be it.
I own it, right?
Own it.
I'll just have to deal with that.
People are always like, oh, we can't be Islamophobic. We can't talk about why rapes and crime in Minnesota have skyrocketed, and Michigan, and Sweden, and London, and France, and Germany.
Yep.
There's one common denominator there, folks.
Yep.
But if you talk about it, you're Islamophobic. And the worst crime you can commit in modern world is to be Islamophobic. Well, phobia basically is rooted in the word fear. And I do fear Islam, because if they were in charge, they would cut them off and torture me and throw me off a building.
Well, hold on now.
And Sweden is the rape capital of Europe for one reason and one reason only. And we know what that reason is.
Yeah.
And that's not being Islamophobic.
Well, what about Rotherham?
What
about Rotherham?
What's that?
Rotherham. Rotterdam, I think is how it's spelled, but in England. That place, the police covered up for it. It's been going on for 15 years.
The grooming patrols and things like that.
Yeah, and the police covered up for it. And it's
absolutely.
And it's not just Islam. It's all one universal. It's pretty much all one nation, Pakistan, and it is. And the words that the victims say, they were punishing them for the collective guilt of all Western society.
Well, a lot of times it's also to save their soul. According to like Islam, if you remember that story where the female barracks for an orphanage was on fire and the girls were coming out. They didn't have their hijabs on properly and in completion. And the firefighters sent them back, or the religious police sent them back into the barracks.
Sure, that's other Islamics, but no, these Pakistanis were saying to these girls in Rotherham that they were doing it as kind of like a collective payment for all Western society, and granted, the West may have done horrible things, but why lay that on the shoulders of a 15-year-old girl?
Well, and why isn't that international news? Recently in France, Samuel, I forget her name, the school teacher, was talking about free speech, and she showed the drawing of Muhammad. She was beheaded. They cut her head off.
Yep.
This is not international news.
And
one reason. Conservatives are too afraid of being called Islamophobic.
Yeah, well, last year they cut that priest's head off, and then at the beginning of the year they cut another teacher's head off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we can't talk about it. And in the newspapers in a lot of those countries, in Sweden, they refuse to put the name of the rapists now, because the name or a description creates racism and intolerance. Because we all know they were all named Mohammed. Duh.
Kind of sounds like our media over here when there's a recent mass shooting that goes away when they figure out the identity of the mass shooter. Yeah.
And one of the most terrifying terrorist attacks ever during a Christmas parade disappeared overnight.
Yep.
Nobody cares. But somebody said tranny.
Yep.
We better cry about it.
Yep.
It just gets me really angry. And have you guys noticed Amber Alerts now? They don't put the ethnicity.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here's my question. Let's say I'm a father and I have a child who's been abducted, and they saw the suspect, and the suspect is white, Hispanic, or black. I want that in the description while they're looking for the person who kidnapped my child, but they don't put it in there anymore because it's racist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even in Airbnb apps, until you actually accept a guest for the Airbnb, it won't tell you anything about that person.
And I don't want to disparage all Islamic people, because all the Islamic people that I've personally met have been fine people, and maybe that's just because the circles I run around with are of a higher caliber.
Or is it because of the Islamic principle of taqiyya? which is a doctrinal principle of fooling the infidel.
It could
It's a very
be
real thing. Smile, we get along. Oh, my brother, it's so great. Let's be friends. Yes, bakery, happy, happy America. Fun, fun. What are they preaching in their mosque in Arabic on in their services? What are they saying? What are their real beliefs? I'm sorry. Sorry, you're guilty till proven innocent as far as I'm concerned, because the Muslim Brotherhood and the national and international movement of Islam is in no way, shape, or form congruent with a freedom-loving people that cherishes women and equality for women and the homosexual rights. It just doesn't exist.
I think all this stuff is a modern Islamic movement that's going to burn itself out, because you can go back pre-World War II, and Islam was quite open-minded and liberal. You go back to the golden age of Islam, well,
even the 1970s in Iran, the women were like
70s in Iran,
full hair. They all look like the
70s in Iraq,
living their lives. Yeah,
I think this is a modern movement in Islam that is going to burn itself out. You're already seeing it. Islamic people are coming out against it. They're speaking out against it, and it's causing a huge rift in Islam between nations, according to whether they want and I'm using liberal in the classic term liberal. I don't say liberal when I talk about Democrats, because I believe in liberal as Lockean liberal.
Well, like Dave Rubin, classic liberal.
Yeah, but I just use liberal, just liberal. It was designed. It meant individual people.
Right.
They were rather open, and it seems like this is a modern thing, the Wahhabism and that stuff. I mean, it's recent. It's less than 100 years old, and it's already burning itself out. It's already kind of losing favor with the people. So I don't know.
I hope so. That's a very optimistic take. Did you know Lady and the Tramp has a warning on it now for Disney because of the Siamese cats?
Oh yeah, yeah.
What's the warning?
We are Siamese.
Yeah,
please.
It's ethnically unkind towards Japanese people. Yeah.
Siamese people, I guess.
Yeah. Siamese.
That's my cat's favorite scene, even though we're done with Disney, right? Disney's a bunch of groomer people, China-loving, genocide promoting.
Well, see,
pieces of crap.
That's the thing.
Yeah, but classical Disney movies. I mean, even Mickey Mouse had blackface at one point.
I still think it's elite capture.
It wasn't always that way.
I think we're staring down the barrel of elite capture, and now the good news about that is the value and quality they put out is one that is going to lose them customers all by themselves. The new Star Wars franchise that came out, aesthetically beautiful, but it told no story. They just relied on aesthetics the whole time, action, CGI.
Yeah, just explosions and CGI and all that.
And they
on my podcast, I did a whole episode a year ago about my painful divorce from Disney. It's been bad for a while. They stopped saying ladies and gentlemen a long time ago, and people are just now finding out. So yeah, the classics are still there, but we should never give another dime to their corporation. They're anti-family. They are anti-American. They are pro-child abuse. They are pro-China.
Have you ever?
And every dollar you spend now.
Have you ever looked into the companies that Disney owns?
Oh yeah,
they looked that
Fox,
up,
don't they?
No, they don't own Fox. That's, I think, is News Corp or whatever it is. No, but they own everything else. I'm telling you, you almost can't avoid Disney. It's insane. Like you take the picture and it looks like little pixelated dots, and you've got to zoom in and you look at it. You're like, whoa.
It's like trying to avoid Vanguard and BlackRock. Right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And guess who owns a lot of each, and they own each other. They're all incestuous. Everyone's got their hands on everyone else's shoulders when it comes to that,
Well, as long as people wake up and realize the common denominator and the primary enemy really is China. That's one reason I love Trump, because he called China out all the time.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if well, it's also our corporation. I mean, the Clintons got us started on this path with NAFTA, but I don't know if we can. I still think we need to come up with a new political name. I mean, fascism was born out of Mussolini. Nazism, of course, we all know where that come from. Marxism, communism, neo-communism, postmodernism. These are all kind of political economic theories. But this one we're in is new, where the corporations drive the government. And that's why
yeah.
I was never a firm believer in getting money out of government, but money in government is what allows corporations to make our government decide to lean their way, and that just leads to the subjugation of people. I mean, it'll be a modern day feudalism is what it will be.
Well, and my friend who we were talking about is a casualty of that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Direct, obvious casualty of that new. Yeah, I guess fascism isn't the word.
It'll be a modern day feudalism where you'll have a corporate lord over your area,
right.
And you can live your life, but you must live your life for this corporate lord, you know, and out here we'll have, I don't know, whoever we have. And if you live somewhere else, you'll have a different corporate overlord, and they all glad hand with each other. And, you know,
and if a lawsuit to that spectrum ever does come out in favor of corporations being able to fire us for our personal lives, it totally changes our entire social dynamics.
Hey, that's why I left my my corporate job. You know, I struck out on my own. I do my own thing now because I saw decisions being made in Minneapolis that were schizophrenic, you know, day to day, new decisions, new rule, new this. And I was like, I can't do this. And it was all to do with the masks. Mask on, mask off, mask on, mask off. We're still debating whether you have to get stuck with something, you know, we don't know.
Right.
And I was just like, I'm done. So I struck out on my own.
Good for you. That's that's where I'm at right now. Just figuring out what the heck comes next, because I won't be beholden to an evil corporation that pushes masks or needles or, woke doctrines, and that tries to control everything you do and say outside of the workplace. And unfortunately, there's a lot of companies like that now.
Well, also most people are in a position where they got to take care of a family. So what do? You have to be beholden to the people who pay you.
That's right.
Do you?
Unless you just want to kick your wives and kids out.
I mean, no,
do your own thing. Yeah. But
well, you don't have to.
I don't completely judge them.
You don't have to kick them out. I'm making 3 times as much as I was when I did the corporate thing. I'm making good right now. You know,
we do have to decide, what hill are you willing to die on? And for me, I mean, I don't have kids, but I have a lot of nieces and nephews. And for me, the moment you try to force my little kid to be masked, and you are making that decision, and you are abusing my child in school or at church or whatever, that's the hill to die on. I don't understand why there wasn't a revolt and people like in the Mormons in Utah. Okay, no problem. Fold your hands. Let's be reverent. Shut down our churches. I love those Jewish guys in New York. You've seen the video?
Oh yeah.
Where the police came and they're like, "Get out of here!"
Yeah.
Or the right.
What about that?
You tell us we can't gather and pray to God.
What about that Polish guy up in Canada? Get out of here, Nazi! I was like, whoa, he went for it. Of course, he got arrested and abused, but
Ian Smith with the gym.
Yep, Ian Smith. Yep,
if more men would be men and take a stand, then we wouldn't be in the situation we're in right now. We are losing because of the silent majority. That is why we are losing. Nobody will even wear a damn "Make America Great Again" hat because they don't say anything. They don't do anything. They could at least write a letter to the school and say, or show up to the school board meetings. I went to the rally to defend women's sports, surrounded by leftists screaming in my face with a little tiny crowd. But the leftists and the abortion marches right now with the Capitol, they flood the area with people. Where are the conservatives? Get in your car and go.
conservatives are at work, but
True.
and that's how it's always been. Now I do want to where was I? I do want to say it's I think the stand has to be made in your life. I think marches on politics. Well, one, I'll be upright with you. I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm not.
Oh, okay.
Trump's way too far left for me. He's
I like that.
red flag laws. I don't like red flag laws. I don't like the bump stock ban. I don't believe any law should be written on that desk ever. Period. End of discussion.
I like that answer. If you're going to tell me you're not a Trump supporter because he's too far left, God bless you.
I am,
because I get it. I get it, especially when it comes to the needle. It's a little bit like, "Ooh, what?"
I'm extreme. I'm extreme libertarian, like extreme, like out
awesome.
there. And that's just my political view. I don't want to force it on anyone else, whatever. But so I never voted for and or supported Trump. Some of the things he did, I like. I'll admit he's probably the best president we've had in a lot of ways. He's better than Reagan. In a lot of ways, he's worse. I would say Eisenhower definitely topped him just because Eisenhower got the budget under control. I mean, he's never going to be a William Henry Harrison. He'll never meet that level. Best president ever. But, I don't buy into political fancy. I don't idolize politics. I hate government. I think I'm one of those. I want to rely on. I want all of us to start voting locally and get the votes locally up, because right now, I'm telling you, abortion is in the news because it's midterm elections and they've got to get the base amped up to go vote. That's the only reason it's in there. That's it. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be surprised if the media didn't talk to whoever released and say, "Hey, can we just release this and say someone did it?" And they're like, "Yeah, that's a good idea." We want to look like our government's for real, so we need people to come vote.
Totally, because everyone's talking about that. Mm-hmm. They're not talking about gas prices.
Everyone's going to come out and vote.
They're not talking about their ability to own a business. They're not talking about the border. They're only talking about that. It was a brilliant, brilliant move. It. Kudos to whoever did it, because it was brilliant.
Okay, abortion comes out every 2 years like clockwork. And it comes out every 4 years hard. And it comes out hard in midterms. You watch it. Look back 4 years ago, there was news coming out that they're threatening Roe versus Wade every 4 years, because midterms, they don't get big showings. And nothing looks worse for universal government, that's Republicans and Democrats, than when they say, 38% of registered voters voted. Oh, well, we lose our power. What I want to see is 100% vote for your mayor, 100% vote for your city councilor, and then 80% vote for your governor and state crap. And then like 20% vote for the president, because then we'll get the 10th Amendment back. And we get the 10th Amendment back, none of these national arguments matter anymore. It goes away. All your arguments are local. And then after we get the 10th Amendment back, then we focus on the 9th. And those are the First Amendment is the most important. Second Amendment makes the first happen, but the 9th and 10th are actually philosophically the most important amendments.
Well, I agree with you about the local elections, especially. It all starts within your local community. And I think a lot of people sort of awaken to the importance of your local government because of the masks and the hysteria. And like what happened with Eric Mutzos trying to hold an outdoor event, and the Davis County government shutting him down and saying they didn't have the right to basically gather in the desert for a private event. So, I agree with that. Yeah, people got to get out. They got to vote. I like the libertarian ideals. I think it's a little bit, what's the word? Idealistic.
Wishy-washy?
I'm so much wishy-washy, just a little too idealistic.
Technically, I'm an anarchist. I think the government could go away tomorrow and we'd just prosper. Honestly, I don't.
I would rather take my chances with that. What is the government doing for us?
I don't see one thing that our national government does that I would call a success. Not one damn thing.
Oh, I would 100% agree with you there.
And I don't
100%.
see one thing that they have done. I mean, we would have to go back. I can't think of when they did an actual success. Dave will say OSHA. Okay. You know, that was in what, 1926?
No, that was 1970 something.
OSHA?
Maybe
it reduced employee death rate from 33 a day to about 16 a day. I think that's pretty successful.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an anarchist. I have listened to that famous anarchist guy. I think he's gay. He was on Glenn Beck. He wrote a book. He's totally 100% an anarchist. And he was totally like,
you're
Glenn
talking,
Beck was like, yeah, I get it. Yeah, that makes
you're
sense.
talking Michael Malice.
So, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's not gay. I'm a big fan of Michael Malice. He wrote a couple of books, Anarchist Handbook, Dear Reader's a good one, but the one that he wrote on the alt-right, I'll have to remember what it's called. I've got it in the other room. That's his best book. That one lays out how kind of the alt-right kind of happened and what they are.
If you want to know what
Michael Malice, whoever it was, sounded super gay.
He does kind of sound gay. Now you've got Michael Malice.
Radio voice will do that to you sometimes.
Yeah, he's a little guy. He's a little dude. He's like 5'4" or 6, a little guy, but very smart as a whip. There's a lot of anarchy people that I like to listen to, but you should check out Douglas Murray.
Stefan Molyneux was the one that turned me on to it. I think he does a great job portraying what the actual meaning of anarchy is and how it can function. And he wrote books about everyday anarchy, how it actually can work for our society. It's not what the media portrays it.
Well, and it's not the spray paint in the skateboard park. You know,
exactly.
The little anarchy symbol. That's kind of what you think of. But yeah. So basically, guys,
we've had you for quite a while.
This has been great. Your beans, man. It's an honor to talk to you, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Hey, you're welcome. You're welcome back on any time. And next time, here's what we need. We need to do it in person, and you need to be in costume.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's about a 2.5 hour process of getting ready, and then an hour drive there. So
in high heels.
Maybe we'll meet up in a neutral area, like a rally or something.
Fine. Yeah. I'm still moving into my new apartment, getting everything situated here. But yeah, that sounds fun. And hopefully next time we talk, I'll have my song released and you guys can listen to it. I'll have to text it to you.
Yeah, do that.
Publicly release it, but it's a lot of fun. It's it's patterned after the late 90s, early 2000s sound of like NSYNC, Backstreet,
I love it.
Britney. It just has like an old, really thumpy throwback feel. It should be really fun.
Good.
But yeah, good. And just for anybody who sees this, if they do want to learn more about what I stand for, they can just go to ladymagausa.com. They can follow me on Facebook and Twitter. And I guess I think we've covered all the bases. I think they get why I do what I do. I just feel like for you as a libertarian, live and let live. But as soon as your freedoms encroach on my freedoms, that's where we have an issue.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
And that's kind of how I feel. And of course, the LGBTQIA plus radical movement no longer speaks for common sense gay people, but they're all too scared to say anything. So that's why I feel called to say something.
I'm also worried that this is going to drive a wedge between the gay people who are just normal people living their lives, who aren't out being activists. I'm worried that's going to drive a wedge between them and redrive a wedge that was there 20 years ago. And I'm worried about that.
Homophobia and non-acceptance of people like me is on the decline, drastically on the decline. There's a huge backlash. And that's why I get so angry.
Yeah.
It's like I say, that's why I can't have nice things, because of you people out there grooming in kindergarten, waving dildos in public, stripping in libraries. So when they see a drag queen, or they hear that I'm a drag queen, or they hear that I'm gay, their defenses automatically go up. And I say that's totally 100% understandable and justifiable. But I do ask that they do a little homework on me before they try to say that I'm a leftist trying to infiltrate the movement. I'm like, I'm more base than any of you guys.
Yeah. Well, even if you're a leftist trying to infiltrate, you've got a good message. So, you know,
I'm not.
If you,
I'm very far right.
If this is a left, right. If this is a message coming out of a leftist, I'm a happy man, you know. Seriously.
Yeah, there are people out there, the evangelical crowd and like the Bryson Grays, and they just shoot me down, tell me I'm going to hell, tell me the Constitution is not written for people like me, tell me I'm a sinner, man shall not put on a woman's garment. And I'm like, define woman's garment, bro. Like, look at the Aztecs, look at the Mayans, look at the Egyptians, look at Versailles. Mm-hmm. Clothing is clothing, theater is theater, colors are colors.
Well, in most cultures early on, women weren't allowed to act. That's where a lot of your early cross-dressing came from. Mm-hmm. Only men were allowed to act, you know?
And so there is a huge amount of backlash against gay people, but that's on us. That's on the common sense gay people who have not said anything, who are watching this nonsense.
Well, I don't want to just say it's on you. It's also on the conservatives who aren't taking people at an individual. You are an individual, right. And I'm going to take you as who you are. As however you step to me, that's who you are to me. And I'm not going to judge you on someone standing next to you that does some of the same hobbies. Hey,
right.
I like to fish, and there are assholes that also like to fish. And I hope people don't judge me based on assholes who like to fish.
Right. Well, specifically, there's this famous rapper in the conservative movement. He likes to go after me, and I'm like, you are a rapper and you are a Christian, and you don't use explicit lyrics. You don't say the N-word. You don't say the F-word. Your music is clean, and you don't want people to hear your song or see you as a black rapper and automatically associate you with Jay-Z or Lil Nas X or whatever evil stuff is going on. And I just ask the same as a drag artist.
He goes after you personally?
Oh yeah.
Why? Why? What's the value in that? In not?
That's a good question, but there's sort of like the Christian Crusader evangelical crowds who, it's like they're definitely not like libertarians. They don't believe in freedom. They believe in the legislation of their moral viewpoints.
Sharia law.
Well, essentially, it would be a form of Sharia law. And they don't really believe in freedom. And what I always say is, I'm not trying to silence you. I want you to be able to say that. You can call me what you want. You can believe what you want. I'm not trying to silence you. And they like to claim that I claim I'm a victim and I'm trying to silence them. I'm like, disagreeing with you is not trying to silence you. And, you know, they're like, I've had one guy, forget his name. He's a big media person on the right. He was going after me. And then he messaged me and was like, I just watched a video. Why is a cool dude like you doing this drag stuff? And I'm like, because I enjoy it. And I could just stop it and try to appease the men in suits and just be like everybody else, but I'm not.
Get a 9 to 5 at a bank. Hey, I'll tell you what, my niece, she thought the drag stuff was what made you cool. She was excited.
Here's my deal with kids. If ever they see me, especially if they want a picture, I always make sure their parent is there and that I very clearly explain.
Oh no, I'm
a man in a costume.
I was there, and she knew that right off the start. But kids nowadays know, and she grows up in Grantsville. I mean, she's out in, I mean, we're in Tooele, and she's even further into Podunk. So
I just try to tread very lightly on that and make it very clear. Like in my family, I'm very close, mostly with the Mormon members of my family now. And if their kids ever see a picture or they're curious or they do go to an event and Lady Maga's there, I just say, how do we explain this? And I always just explain it as Halloween. I could be Superman. I could be Spider-Man. I could be a unicorn. I could be a strawberry. Today, this is my costume and it's just for fun. I don't think there's ever a need for a conversation about sexuality or gender identity. Well, it really just is as simple as, this is funny, it's silly, Uncle Ryan's in a costume, and we're moving on.
Let's call this out. I have seen you twice now in costume, and neither time was your costume derogatory or gross or anything like that. You weren't like you weren't like in a skirt that had the tidy whities hanging out the bottom. So I don't think you know.
No, and I don't go for the looks that are tucked, so to speak, skin tight, leotard, sexual stuff. I don't do that. Even that picture I posted with the snake, I took that picture a long time ago, and I messaged a bunch of friends and I was like, is this too inappropriate? Is this bad? And they were like, no, it's fine. But I would obviously never wear that in public.
Still drifting back into your Mormondom, I see.
Well, like I said, I'm totally still culturally Mormon.
Yeah.
I hold on to those wonderful, clean values. And but you know what? I was a Britney impersonator. So when I would do Britney Work Bitch or Oops, I Did It Again, yes, I was wearing outfits that were very much.
Oh, you were wearing the plaid skirt. I think she wore in one of those.
No, I didn't do like the teen. I did Oops, I Did It Again, Circus, and Work Bitch. Sorry for saying bitch, but if you're quoting Britney, it's not.
No, you're fine. Seriously, I don't remember any of the songs because back then I was listening to Sepultura and Megadeth and things like that. Britney Spears was what the girl made you put in the CD player or cassette player back then. Actually, I didn't get a CD player till I was 2 years into the Army.
I remember I brought a Britney Spears poster to Iraq. I put it up on the tent. Yeah. Everyone went crazy for it, you know.
Oh yeah, yeah.
She was our mascot.
I have a whole episode called Britney Spears and the Occult on my podcast. Oh. You should check it out because it's all about MK Ultra and the trauma-based mind control that they've done to that woman.
Yeah, she's been held hostage. Have you ever heard of I think it's Alex Weishaupt? He does a lot of stuff about that. But yeah, no, the MK Ultra, that stuff happened.
Well, and the abuse of celebrities definitely happens. I think once they cross a certain threshold and they're no longer a person, they're a product. You know, men in suits at a table basically say, this is what you're going to do. This is what you're going to wear. And if you go against us, somebody might get hurt.
Or do they get to cross that threshold if they sign up? I wonder which comes first. Is it crossing the threshold that comes first, or is it signing up that comes first? Because I look at that. What's that chick's name who after Britney Spears, dark hair, she was the super popular
Katy Perry.
Yeah, she starts out as a Christian singer, and then you've got the Destiny's Child lady starts out. They all start out in these gospel bands, and then they slip. But anyways, everyone, we want to everyone thank Lady Maga for coming on. Outstanding conversation. It's nice to have this open dialogue, you know, where there's no taboo.
Yeah, please don't ban us.
Yeah, where you don't have to hide from saying stuff with someone that, you know, we agree on most everything. The only thing we don't agree on is, well, we probably agree on this, is I would look god awful in a big poofy red dress. We all know this.
Maybe if you shaved.
You know, if you shaved, I'm looking at your face.
I'm looking, dude, I would be on the cover of peopleofwalmart.com.
He's already thinking of your makeup requirements.
Yeah, dude, it would have to be like a Darth Vader mask coming on. Just you'd have to put it on with the.
I wouldn't personally take on that challenge.
Yeah,
but anybody can look glamorous and beautiful. Actually, that's the artistry of drag.
With me,
it's a transformation.
With me, it's the light switch is the art of my drag. Turn off the light
I always
switch.
tell people that my two best friends when I'm Lady Maga USA are darkness and distance.
Yeah.
So like I don't want the fluorescent lighting. And if we're going to take a picture, back up 10 feet. There we go. Now I look good. You know,
don't zoom in. But anyway,
drag makeup up close is just, it's intense. It's very, very, it's not necessarily pretty up close because you're painting a character essentially on your face. So you got to back up about at least 2 feet, and then, you know, it kind of blurs in the eye of the beholder. But when you get up close, you can see that, because I have to glue down my eyebrows.
Oh,
so the eyebrows are all glued down, and, you know, the contact lenses are a little bit. So that picture, now I'm all worried that I look cross-eyed. Maybe my contact had slipped a little bit.
You're going to have to look it up and see for yourself, because one eye is way off to the side, or one eye's not as far off and the other one's way off. So
it's probably my contact that slipped.
It could be. Yeah. Don't be embarrassed. I'm sorry I called out the cross-eye.
If I was holding a snake that big, I'd probably
it wasn't. It was a close-up of the face. But no, I like your message. If I was to change it, I'd just bring you over to the anarchist side with me. That's it. Other than that, your message is good.
I'm fascinated. I want to learn more about that. And like I said, the only reason I'm a Republican is because I hope to bring about change within the Republican Party.
Yeah.
Not because I respect the Republican Party. I am disgusted, betrayed, and humiliated by their overall leadership. And every chance they get, they expand government power as well.
Yep. Yes, they do.
Well, the Libertarian Party, I think, is the great benchmark for what party's in control, because the Libertarian Party always sides with the party that's not in control. And the Libertarian Party during the 60s was siding with the leftist party, because back then you had conservative Democrats. I mean, hell, you had Heinlein, for God's sakes. And if that isn't conservative, I don't know what is. But the Libertarians, you'll watch them. And right now the Libertarians are siding with the Republicans because the Democrats own the cathedral, and they're lording over everyone else with edicts. And so that's where we're at. That's why I lean closer to Republicans. But in the 80s, I don't know if I'd have been leaning close with the Republicans.
Right.
They were pretty abusive back then.
Well, I am a Trumplican. I've always been, I grew up conservative, considered myself Republican, definitely walked away from it when I came out of the closet. I was like with Human Rights Campaign, all caught up in that. But I wasn't interested in the Republicans because of people like, you know, Mitt Romney. And they didn't have any courage or passion. And when President Trump came on the scene, first of all, he's the most pro-gay president in American history.
First time he ever put a gay man in cabinet position, ambassador to Germany.
My friend Richard Grinnell, exactly. And he's the first president in American history to have the courage to stand up at the United Nations and look into the eyes of those evil Islamic leaders and condemn their treatment of homosexual people.
Yep.
Obama didn't do that. Trump did that.
What, Obama do that? I mean,
but you know, if you ask your average LGBT person, like, oh, who's homophobic? Who is, well, of course it has to be Trump.
It's the media. No,
do your homework.
It's the media class. It's the cathedral that is forcing that down our throats. They are the ones that's telling everyone, this is who's this is who's that.
Yeah.
People don't look past the headlines. You know,
they sure as heck don't. And they certainly don't listen to a full speech, like the narrative of very fine people acting as if he was talking about Nazis. No, he was talking about people who are concerned about a historic statue that's been there since their childhood.
He was talking about both sides of the statue argument, nothing to do with the KKK. Yeah.
And if you listen to the whole speech, he even condemns white supremacy and everything else, but no one bothers to listen. And that's kind of one of the frustrating things for me as well is, you know, people see one picture and they just make all sorts of assumptions, and they don't bother to like listen to the podcast, watch some, you know, long live videos or whatever, even a podcast like this. But people who really care hopefully will. But I would love to come back on once my song's out there. We can rock out to the new song, and I'll text it to you as soon as we're done here. You can hear it. Just don't share it yet.
Okay, fair enough. You're welcome on anytime. Just reach out. We'll plug you in.
All right. Well, send me the link to this so I can share it.
I already shared it on Lady Maga.
Oh, you did?
Yep,
Okay.
it's up on there. You can see it. And hey, man, have a good week. Have a good weekend. Be safe, and everyone else. We will see you guys on Tuesday.
Monday. Monday is our next show.
Who is
we
it?
Just got a show booking for Mi Primeiro Bitcoin. This is the educational course leadership that's going to come on and tell us about how they're teaching all the children in El Salvador how to use cryptocurrency so that their country can adjust to crypto.
That is outstanding.
Within the next few years.
All right. So we'll see. We'll be back on Monday.
Amigos. Adios. You guys take care.
Take her easy.
Thank you so
ciao,
much.
ciao. Thank
Be
you.
safe,
Okay.
man.
Bye.